What's up, St. Louis? It's your host, Luke Farrell of the STL Bucket List Show. The STL Bucket List Show is driven by Bomarito Automotive Group. Bomarito is Missouri's #1 car dealership with over 20 locations, so I guarantee that there's one in your neighborhood. Since the 1970s, Bomarito has sold over 1 million cars, and John and the entire team made us feel completely comfortable when we picked up our new vehicle recently for the family. So I can't thank the Bomarito team enough for driving this episode forward, and enjoy the show. For 50 years, Bankhead and Firth Orthodontics has been proudly serving the vibrant St. Louis community. As a family-owned and operated practice since day one, the commitment to excellence and personalized care runs deep. They believe in giving back to the wonderful people of St. Louis who have entrusted them with their smiles. Step into the 5 locations across St. Louis with modern offices equipped with the latest orthodontic technology. Their 3 amazing doctors are dedicated to providing top-notch, innovative treatments tailored just for you. Join us in celebrating 50 years with Bankhead and Firth Orthodontics, where your family becomes a part of theirs. Schedule your free consultation today and let them help you achieve the confident, gorgeous smile that you deserve. Because in St. Louis, your smile is your legacy.
Hey St. Louis, Birch Tree Recovery is the newest outpatient mental health and substance use recovery resource in St. Louis. Birch Tree is truly doing it differently. Our science-based humanistic approach, along with a talented team of clinical professionals, will ensure that your time with us is life-changing. Birch Tree's approach to treatment is rooted in research and data. We reject any judgment and shame that may exist and challenge you to live the life you deserve, free of labels and stigma. If you or someone you know is struggling with mental health, call us. We can help.
If you want to hear about St. Louis, tune into the Bucket List Show weekly. Hear what Marissa and Luke say. It drops every Wednesday. Got a dope new guest every single week. Buckle up for the ride. Who's it gonna be? Who's on the show today? They rep St. Louis. What to do in the loo on a late night, or maybe what to do on a date night. Yeah, Bucket List has you covered. They know what's going on. What's going on? They'll give you, hey, 18 different things to do, or 19 if you need one more to choose. Yeah, this city is a place we call home. A place we call home, yeah.
St. Louis, we're back with another episode of the STL Bucket List Show. We're here in the studios. It's our Thanksgiving week episode. It's coming out a little bit after Thanksgiving, but we're thankful for each and every one of you for listening each and every week. We've been putting out this show for over 140 episodes, and we couldn't do this without the people, places, and events that make St. Louis special. We have a person and an event here in St. Louis that is very special to this city, so I want to get right into it. We have Kirven Douthit-Boyd, the artistic director at St. Louis Dance Theater, in the studio today. Thank you for coming in.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah,
Very excited to be here.
It's amazing what you guys do, and I think that it's hard to put words to it. You have to see it in person. So if you could try to put words to what you guys do in St. Louis, describe what the St. Louis Dance Theater is.
Yeah, so we are a contemporary dance company. We are a repertory company, which means that we do works by many different choreographers. My dancers are well-versed in a myriad of styles of dance. And so storytelling is actually a huge part of our identity. So when you blend those things together, right, it's almost like we're bringing stories to life through the body.
Right.
And so, I always like to lead with that. Like we're telling stories.
That's amazing because there's so many ways, and in St. Louis we have so many creative artists in this city. I think that a lot of people don't realize that. And you're not from St. Louis. So
I'm not from
tell
St.
us
Louis.
tell us your story. Tell us your background.
And I'll tell you my background. But to your point, the arts scene here in St. Louis is what was the draw for me several years ago. So I grew up in Boston, Massachusetts, Dorchester to be exact.
Hey.
And grew up dancing there and spent my summers in New York, training at the Alvin Ailey School. When I graduated high school, I went into Ailey II, which is the junior company of the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater. And then in 2004, I joined the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater, where I got to tour the world and do some incredible repertoire for 11 beautiful years. And then in 2015, I made the decision to leave the stage full time, to come to St. Louis and to give back to this community. My husband, Antonio, and I had been coming back for several years to do workshops and master classes at COCA.
Yeah.
And I just, during that time, as we continued to learn and grow and develop as that side of who we were, I was like, how incredible would it be to just be here all the time and to,
Yeah.
to bring what we know to be great about the art form to this community.
Right.
And, have been doing that since 2015. And so again, it
Mm.
was literally, one, my love for teaching and mentoring and creativity, it created creativity as a dancer.
Mm-hmm.
That was, in the ways that I was growing, that's what was a draw, but also the vibrant arts community here in St. Louis, definitely like
Mm-hmm.
held my attention.
I know we have the sign right here, our St. Louis Arts sign. Shout out to the Regional Arts
Yeah,
Commission. I know that
absolutely. Shout out to the Regional Arts Commission. Absolutely. Yeah.
Vanessa and that entire team have done so much, and COCA, another great organization, obviously. So tell me a little bit about that story. So you guys said you kept finding your way back here. What were your ties to St. Louis? Was it just through the dance community, or was it your husband's ties to this
Yeah,
community?
so Antonio actually is from St. Louis.
Okay, that makes sense.
And
Okay,
he grew up training at COCA. And
nice.
so, that was my introduction to St. Louis. And actually the same year that he asked me to come and assist him with a project, he also took me to the zoo. He took me to the art museum,
Mhm.
and I was just like blown away by the fact that we just walked into these places and
Perfect.
like were able to experience art. That to me was just like wild.
Because that was a luxury in other cities.
You know what
Yeah,
I mean? Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. And coming from New York City, you know
yeah.
what I mean? Where, it's saturated and it's all, it's brilliant. But, just to be able to have an experience,
Hmm.
without, feeling like, man, I can't afford this, or like,
Right. Or I don't
I
feel
shouldn't be in
comfortable in this
here.
space.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That wasn't the case. And I really feel like St. Louis is really special for in that sense.
So you came here to St. Louis and then, things happened and you ended up finding this position. So tell us like a little bit about the work that goes on behind the scenes because I think that people, they see the events that you do. You have the season calendar, you have the rebuild coming up, which is the winter concert and all these things. But like, what does your day to day look like as the artistic director? I mean, I'm sure that there's a lot of hats that you're wearing in that
Yeah,
place.
there are so many hats that I'm wearing. I would have to say my favorite hat that I actually, because I have so many that I don't get to exercise as often, as much as I would like to, is like the time in the studio with the dancers. And aside from, when I'm in my creative process, or, when I have a really brilliant rehearsal director, Leo Arpon, who, moved his family here from Japan to,
Hmm.
to join our team, and who's very brilliant at what he does. And he kind of holds the fort down when I'm unable to be in the room. And once he's got things together, I get to come in and I get to help, the dancers dive deeper into context, and
Hmm.
to really connecting the dots in terms of, that storytelling that I was talking about, and transcending, right,
Hmm.
the steps. Sometimes, it's real easy for a dancer to get stuck in, well, what line am I making, or what,
Right.
what is this move, when actually the unlock for that moment could be, what part of the story am I actually in? You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And I love helping the dancers connect those dots. I'm really I'm kind of candid in the way that in the way that I speak to them. I feel like, yeah, I have to approach them in a very real sense, and they respond to that, and I'm very very proud of that.
Hmm.
So the time with them is some of, the best time. But I also love to curate. I'm immensely proud of the fact that, like, a lot of really brilliant choreographers have been reaching out to us, and they want to come to St. Louis and they want to work with these dancers.
Hmm.
And I love like how their reputation is building, and how we are being perceived like in the dance field
Yeah.
in general.
Hmm.
And so being able to curate, right? Like every part of the experience from my audience, I'm thinking of, right? From when they come into the theater, to what sound is playing when they sit down, to
Hmm.
the order of the program, and how that, makes them feel. And I'm constantly searching for new creative voices, and figuring out how, I can get these world famous things here for these dancers. And that to me is also a really, really fun part of the,
Hmm.
of the work. And then there's like the logisticals, right? Like, the psychology of philanthropy is something that I'm finding quite fascinating.
Hmm.
And I was in a different kind of leadership position at COCA, and so I learned a great deal being in that space.
Hmm.
And so I'm just so happy to have had that time, and just like really leaning into how all of this, like that time, my career as an artist, my MFA studies, and how all of that has kind of like led me to this place. And I'm kind of like, fearlessly kind of stepping into this new chapter.
Hmm. That's beautifully said. And you mentioned like the philanthropic word of like this city in general. And we have people on the show all the time. And I feel like St. Louis, without those philanthropic leaders and those people that are able to continue to make this accessible, because like you said, like we're putting on a world-class show for very affordable prices and also still want to provide careers for people that are here because we want to keep our talent here as long as we can.
That's
You also want
absolutely
them to go
right.
fly, and I'm sure they
Yeah,
go
yeah, yeah.
fly.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
eh,
But to your point, if we are able to create this space that is of a caliber for our local artists, you know
yeah,
what I mean? Then why not? And
right.
that's again um a huge push for me and a huge, motivational piece for me, or what keeps me going, actually, I will say, is the fact that I feel in my heart of hearts that in terms of contemporary dance and what I might be capable of achieving here,
Hmm.
St. Louis deserves it.
Yeah.
Right. And the same, kind of status that my colleagues in the museums space have, and, you know, Jazz St. Louis and the Symphony Orchestra and the Muni and all of these and all of these really profound arts organizations. There's, in my opinion, I could be wrong, but I think I might be right. But
Yeah.
like, there's no reason why this dance nugget that we're on to like can't like just like round this out and really make St. Louis a whole like
Hmm.
arts destination.
Exactly. And we've been seeing it more. Like Forbes did an article on the Arts District and
Hmm.
everything that's going on. And you guys, I mean, were founded in 2010. A lot of these other organizations have been around a long
A
time. So
long
you're
time,
still
yes,
kind of
absolutely. Yeah, wait, yeah,
trying to earn your keep and make your name in this city. But something on your
absolutely,
website that I thought was beautiful was just your vision was just one sentence, and is to be known in the St. Louis region for creativity and power of world-class dance.
absolutely.
So for those that are listening to this show that might have never experienced a show, or maybe not even knew that you guys were a part of something,
Mhm.
what would you tell them, and why would you encourage them to come see you guys?
Yeah, again, so we are a repertory company, which means that we do some world famous works, by notable choreographers, and we also do works by up and coming choreographers, and all of these movement vocabularies are slightly varied, right? And
Hmm.
so when you come to a theater on any given night, the music is going to be different. Again, the movement is going to be different. It's a whole aesthetic that we're creating for you every time the curtain goes up.
Hmm.
The stories behind these works are going to be varied, right? Like last year, we had choreographers from all around the world, really, that came to us. From Bradley, who is from South Africa, my good friend Tommy, who is from LA, and so they're coming to us. Jessica Lang, who is a New York-based choreographer. So,
Hmm.
all of this vision that these artists are bringing to these young dancers, and then having their interpretations of it,
Hmm.
of these works come to this community. To me, that's like that's that I think is the draw for anyone who is like
Hmm.
maybe what would entice me to be there, right?
Exactly. No, that's beautiful, and I love that. You mentioned young dancers. So I look on your website and you have pictures of all your company dancers,
Hmm.
and I'm looking at all these amazing pictures. So tell us about some of those faces that people can see, and some of those exciting stories that you guys have.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. So I have 16 brilliant young artists who are really from all over the world. Keenan Fletcher joins us from Jamaica, and Spencer Everett is a Canadian-born artist.
Hmm.
Arpej is from LA.
Hmm.
Jada, came to us by way of USC, and I believe is from the Baltimore area,
Wow.
right? So these young dancers they're from everywhere, and I think that it's a testament to what we're building here in St. Louis, is that, their talent, for some of them, has been all over the world, right?
Hmm.
And has experience that is that is of the world, but
Right.
they've chosen to make St. Louis their home,
Right.
because of the work that we're doing. And
Mhm.
again, just so proud of that.
Yeah, that's amazing. It is really cool to see because like a lot of the people before hearing about you probably didn't even know where St. Louis was. If they're like, "Hey, point us out on the map," and
Oh
now they're
yeah,
here and they're bringing and they have their own
it's
brands now with social media.
it's
I
so
mean,
true.
social media, they're able to kind of create their own brands as well now,
That's so true.
which is exciting. The world feels bigger when you look at it, but then when you feel like what social media has done, and we love social media, but we also understand the value of it and we understand the separation of it that needs to be done too. But it brings the world closer together because people there's not as much entry to barrier to get to places or to
That's
see
right.
things,
That's
you
right.
know. So there's a lot of benefits to it. Now I want to talk a little bit about some of your open classes. So these are
Mhm.
for all levels,
Yeah,
right? You
absolutely.
don't have to like be. I mean, they have all levels for adults and teens.
Absolutely.
Okay, yeah.
Yes.
Tell us about some of those.
Yeah, we have a whole educational program. It's still a work in progress for us,
Hmm.
honestly, but we have some really incredible teaching artists who lead, ballet classes, jazz classes, again for all ages. And
Hmm.
whether you are an aspiring dancer
Hmm.
or you just want to spend a Monday night with your girlfriends,
Hmm.
we've got something for you.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. So you guys went through this amazing rebrand, and as the artistic director, I'm sure you were corely focused on
Mhm.
how to do this in
Yep.
the most tasteful way. So now your entire content, the new brand, the entire content strategy around that. Tell us like that process and how important this is for the future of what you guys are doing at St. Louis Dance Theater.
Yeah, that's a great question. Because in full transparency, I was kind of nervous when I suggested this change.
Yeah.
But it came at a time when I was sitting with, the leadership and the marketing committee, and we were talking about who we wanted to be, and I was adamant about what was possible in terms of the art and and
Mm-hmm.
and what I saw, in terms of our space in St. Louis. And for me, that meant that everything was in flux, right? Our mission, our vision, the whole thing kind of like, I thought to myself initially that we had kind of outgrown that. And I thought that it was only right for us to honor that growth.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, saying a name and having it land right away and not have people be like, "Well, what are you saying?" Or like,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, well, what is that?" Or, something like that. Like that to me was critical in terms of this evolution. And so, I didn't suggest turning it into Kirven Douthit-Boyd dance theater, or you know what I mean, like,
Right.
or something that was, like that. My suggestion was taking it back to St. Louis Dance Theater because it was actually incorporated as,
Mm-hmm.
when the company first started. And then I made the case that, like, dance theater, like that is who we are. We're going to tell stories. We're
Mm-hmm.
going to perform and move at the height of the,
Yeah.
of possibilities for the art form.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and then again, taking stake and it's taking our claim in this city. We are of the city. We're a St. Louis Dance Theater. And so,
Yeah.
um, I kind of stuck by that. As you can imagine, with any kind of shift that major, there's going to be some pushback. And, I still kind of feel it sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But, to the point that you made about those beauties that you were just scrolling through on your computer,
Mhm.
once they hit the Marley,
Yeah,
right? It's like mic drop. You know what I mean?
exactly.
Like I don't have to say anything. Like you you
Right.
you get to see it in action.
Mhm.
And not speaking in any binary or about, better than or less than. It's just very different from what was happening. And it's my intentions behind this work, I think, are centered in a very different space,
Mhm.
which is why this rebrand
Mhm.
makes all the sense right now.
Yeah, and you have this interesting, like, icon with the D and then
Oh,
the
yes.
square.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So then you have these dancers, like, if you just scroll if you guys are on Instagram, go to STL Dance Theater on Instagram, give them a follow. They're 100 followers away from 10,000.
All
Are we
right.
gonna get there by the time this
Yes.
comes out?
And shout out
Uh
to the team. We had an incredible leadership, on our marketing, committee. Tracy has been a remarkable asset for us, and she actually connected us with her colleagues at Rogers Townsend, who
Hmm.
started us through this whole process of our brand declaration, and then from there she hooked us up with her homie Chris,
Hmm.
who went through this whole story where he thought about the city of St. Louis and actually like took a map of the city, and
Hmm.
if you look at the map, like the city of St. Louis, it's in this like D shape.
Hmm.
And so then like that was like his inspiration for this really sophisticated, you know, brand identity that you see. And
Yeah.
for me, to your point about how the dancers are like moving through that, like
Hmm.
that's what I saw right away. I was like, the way that I'm going to be able to,
It's like emotion.
oh
Yeah.
my gosh, the way that I'm going to be able to
And
use
then I
this
think
to
the D is
just
also dance too. And then there's a
That's
lot of
absolutely
yeah,
right, and
yeah.
yeah, so he made that connection, and then also like took the shape of like a proscenium stage and the
Hmm.
theater, which also kind of makes this like that same kind of,
Okay.
and then he like kind of overlaid them
See,
in
some
a
some of that, some people are like, "Whoa, that goes up." But when
yeah
you really think about it, and then
yeah
like we mentioned even before on off air, is like when you tell people your name, you want to feel confident in what you do through that, and then now you guys can live that out.
that's
Now
absolutely
it's your
right.
job to live out that mission.
That's
It's
right.
one thing to buy a bunch of new branding and all this different things, but it's another thing to like let's lean into it and let's keep pushing forward. And you guys have done that. And I wanted to kind of look at 2025 a little bit because we're in December now.
We are.
And you guys obviously you guys have released a bunch of your shows coming up in 2025.
Hmm.
Let's do a two-part question. So how does that creative approach look when you're planning out these calendars? How far in advance are you? And then tell us a little bit about what to expect next year because you guys got some exciting things with the RE, the re. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Kirven's like a mad scientist. The more I see my dancers grow, and
Mm-hmm.
and the further I see them push, and the again to the point that I made earlier about these different creatives that reach out to me, I'm always dreaming.
Mm-hmm.
And so to that point, I literally have conversations in my inbox right now about the 26-27 season and beyond.
Of course.
So I'm actually like, when I see art that I love and that I think will be impactful both for our community and for my dancers,
Mm-hmm.
I reach out to that person, whoever that is, and I just say, like, hey, let's have a conversation.
Yeah.
And if you don't mind having this conversation about the 27-28 season, if you don't think I'm crazy, and like, here's all the ways you can remain connected to our work, and like, you know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean? So,
Yeah. You're
like,
planting seeds. Yeah.
I'm always planting seeds, and I actually have a multi-year plan. So, very very grateful again for my time at Coca. And one of the nuggets that I take away from that time is we did we were like mentored, so to speak, by Michael Kaiser
Mm-hmm.
in the DeVos Institute. And Michael Kaiser was influential in kind of like years ago turning things around for the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater. He was the executive director and really helped get them to a financial model that was sustainable, and that actually like helped to catapult them from a business standpoint to like where they are today. There was a lot of work that happened after that, but
Yeah.
he kind of steered the ship in
Of
the other
course.
direction, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the things that he encouraged was like, for an artistic director was to make a multi-year plan, just write your dream programming down. And he said, make sure that it's in pencil, you know what I mean? Because like you'll have to like a jigsaw puzzle kind of things.
Yeah.
Um, and I've done that. And I honestly on my desktop right now that I reference all the time, I have like 10 years of my dream programming, just like,
Yeah. It's there.
it's there.
You're speaking it into
I'm
existence,
speaking it
but then
all
you have
into
to work
existence.
backwards to get there.
That's
Yeah.
exactly right, and then
Yeah.
then I have to work backwards to get there. You're
Mhm.
absolutely right about that. And so, um, it's a process that I really love. And you asked me another question. That it was a two-parter. The one about the
Yeah,
programming
one
and the
about
planning, and
how
the other
far
one,
in advance you
uh-huh.
take it, and then also about your programming in
Oh,
25 that's
programming
already out.
25.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So, the first thing coming up that I know everybody's gonna want to see is
Mhm.
we are doing a really exciting collaboration with Jazz St. Louis,
Okay.
December 20th and 21st at the Skip Veras Performing Arts Center on the Chaminade campus.
Nice.
And it is a reimagining of Duke Ellington and Billy Strayhorn's Nutcracker.
Mm-hmm.
And so I, am telling this really fun story about a musician who comes to St. Louis to see Josephine Baker in a one night only event, and
Mhm.
he ends up because he wants to write a song for her,
Mhm.
and he actually ends up falling in love with one of her chorus boys, and so it's loosely inspired by the life of Billy Strayhorn, who was the mastermind behind a lot of what we know today as Duke Ellington's catalog,
Mhm.
and he was also openly gay black male in the 1950s, right? So a
Mhm.
member of the LGBTQ plus community at a time when most folks tried to hide. And so, it was kind of important to me since this was kind of his master brain, right? That kind
Right.
of was the reason for why this music even exists, for me to pay homage to the unsung hero, so to speak. And
Mhm.
so I've placed it here in St. Louis in the popular Gaslight District,
Mhm.
and I've kind of romanticized the era because as I was doing my research, I learned about the Industrial Revolution, which led to a very segregated city, which, up to the 1950s, at the Crystal Palace specifically, like most of the patrons were white and
Mhm.
the wait staff and the entertainers were people of color, right? So there's
Right.
definitely this tension and this divide. And there's some of that baked into the work, but as a creative, especially as a black man, that's not necessarily the story that I always want to tell
Mhm.
at this point in my career. And so for me, it's important to kind of romanticize all of this and bringing
Mhm.
into a very magical space, right? Because the
Yeah.
Nutcracker is magical. I'm sorry if you're looking for a Rat King, there's no Rat King in this version. But just this really fun and exciting blend of the robust score with some additional things in there and some hidden, some
Mhm.
surprises in there,
Wow.
and bringing it to life by way of contemporary dance. So
Yeah.
that's happening December 20th and 21st, and then in February, at the end of February, the 27th through March 2nd. We'll actually be at COCA in another repertory concert where
Mhm.
we will be premiering Six Dances by Jiri Kylian. Jiri Kylian was
Mhm.
the artistic director and resident choreographer of the Netherlands Dance Theater for several years,
Yeah.
30 some odd years,
Mhm.
I actually believe it was,
Mhm.
as well as a bunch of other returning favorites that'll be taking place on stage again.
That's amazing. And that's called Rebuild, the winter concert.
Rebuild the winter
Yeah.
concert, yes.
So, where do you we as an artist, because you're an artist as well, and all these things that you do, now you're more pushing your vision out to other people, which is even harder as an artist because you have to understand it yourself, and then
Yep.
you have to push that out to where your dancers understand it, and then your dancers have to then push that out to when the crowd understands it. So
Yeah.
there's like there's a well-oiled machine that goes into what you're doing, but how do you find your inspiration? Is there people or is there things that you watch? Is it anything? Like, do you just hear a song and then you like what is your creative process like, and how do you find inspiration? Because you're always having to keep your ears open and your eyes open to when you could be at the farmer's market and you could find inspiration like
Hmm.
anywhere.
Yeah. D, all of the above. D, all of the above.
Yeah.
I one of the most recent things that I created is a ballet called For Love's Sake. And it has an original sound score by an artist, a brilliant young artist. His name is Uwazi, and it was actually inspired by a sound installation called Hum by a Montreal-based artist. Her name is Hadra Wahid, and I actually saw it at the Contemporary Art Museum. And so you walk into the museum, and there's this square, this like white square of carpeted area, and then like these 16 speakers that are hung almost like a grid like
I think
this.
I did see that. So you walk in. Yep, I
Uh-huh.
I, I
And
remember that.
depending on where you sat in the space, you were hearing these hums of sounds of protest from different cultures.
Mm-hmm.
And everything shifted depending on where you were in the space. Like the way that, obviously like you saw the speakers, the actual sound that you heard. And I have not been moved by a work of art like that in a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew that, that I had to that was going to be the inspiration for my next work,
Yep.
and was really, really excited to premiere For Love's Sake in our fall concert, which will actually be on the program again in the winter. So I know you all want to come and see that.
Yep.
But yeah, so I draw inspiration from everywhere. Honestly, I've been sitting with this one song recently, this like, blend of like rhythm, percussion, and trumpet for a long time that I'm actually going to work with a collaborator to kind of extend,
Mhm,
and that's going to be that's going to be the next work that I create, probably sometime next season. So
mhm.
I'm inspired by poetry. I'm inspired by imagery. So yeah, again, like I really get it from everywhere.
Yeah, that's incredible. I do remember that at Cam, that
Hmm.
exact exhibit, and yeah, because it was like white carpet, and then it was just like it was in that. Yeah, it was crazy just to see. They do a
So,
great job over there
oh
too.
my goodness.
Yeah.
Shout out to Lisa Melandry, man. Yo, yeah.
And that's a
Again, they're
that,
doing it. They listen,
yeah.
the arts folks here in St. Louis, I
Yeah.
really feel like are the heartbeat of this city. And there is so much that is really special and rich about this space.
Mhm.
But in terms of people who believe,
Mhm.
right? People who believe in something and people who, stand on that business and just try to bring greatness here,
Mhm.
right? I really feel like the arts community, my colleagues in the arts community are some very incredible
When it
folks.
takes that because there's a thing that tradition and generational things that if we don't continue to pass this torch to talented people that
Hmm.
actually care,
Yeah,
because people get in it for a plethora of different reasons, but
absolutely.
if you don't if the bag gets fumbled now, then our kids won't have
Oh my
this,
goodness.
and the internet, the digital age can only do so much. Then when you go into a room and you
And
feel
you
and
have
hear
that
something,
experience.
and it's like same with musicians. Like musicians, it's great that you have a good TikTok, but it's like, hey, what do you make me feel when I go to your show?
That's absolutely
Yeah.
right. And
Eh,
again, to that point, like I grew up dancing. My mom has 5 sisters,
mhm.
and so I was the first grandchild, and I was a boy, so spoiled rotten, like,
Yeah, all the
and
aunties.
all the aunties, like, still to this day, like, all my aunties always calling me, like,
Yeah.
I tell people all the time that I had the great fortune of being raised by all those Black women,
Mhm.
and, so I danced, but and I liked it,
Mhm.
loved it even, I would argue, but, like, didn't even think of it as a career and as a profession,
Of
and
course.
then when I was a freshman in high school, crazy, I went to a performing arts high school, but still no, like, just because the love of dance, but not necessarily because I
You
thought
thought it
of
ended there. Yeah. Maybe, or you just were like, I'm just here because
I'm
I'm
here
yeah.
because I do love this thing, and again, my aunties are encouraging me
Mm.
to do this,
Mhm.
and I on a school field trip, and I actually wasn't even gonna go, but on a school field trip, we saw a performance of the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater. We got tickets to the Celebrity Series of Boston,
Mhm.
and I was gonna, like, skip,
Yeah.
and that performance is literally what changed my life. Being in the theater, seeing bodies on stage that looked like me, the depth of the work, the
Mhm.
just the overall production value, I had never seen anything like it before in my life. I'd seen ballet and I liked ballet and I thought it was beautiful, but like just like the connection, the visceral connection, right? Like
Mhm.
to what they were doing. It was just something that I'd never felt before. And so to
Mhm.
your point, like you gotta experience these things in order to really understand,
Mhm.
the power.
Yeah, and that is you have to see something before you can act on it, and you saw people in on stage that you were like, "Okay, I can do that now."
Yeah,
And that gave you permission to chase that dream.
absolutely.
And you chased it and you did it, and now you're giving that to other young dancers.
That's right.
So it's a circle and you're pouring into it. But I want to talk a little bit more about St. Louis. So you ended up here,
Mhm.
because of your partner and other things you like to hear. But what does the city of St. Louis mean to you? Because this is home now to you.
This is home now. I've
Yeah.
been here, this summer will be 10 years.
Wow.
And it for me it is it's the art and culture here.
Mm-hmm.
It's the quality of life here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, again, I grew up in Boston and then I lived in New York for 13 years and again loved living in New York, but in terms of I don't miss living in,
Mhm.
a very small
Of course.
apartment.
And being in the rat race. Yeah.
And yeah, and being in the rat race.
Mhm.
Again, I was very fortunate to be able to grow up in my career in the time in the way that I did. But I don't know, there's just something really special about the art and culture, about the people here in St. Louis that, it feels like uh yeah, it feels like I've landed on a very in a very special space.
Mhm. Well said. Yeah, St. Louis, I hear that from a lot of people. Like, obviously, people hear St. Louis, and you sometimes hear negative things about any big city
Of
or any
course,
city in
any
general.
city.
But when you really live here and you have conversations with the people, and depending on what neighborhood you live in or where you hang out at or any of these places, like the city is not only so open, so kind, but so willing to support each other. When you
Absolutely.
have an ask and you're like, hey, you ask your colleagues, like, hey guys, we really need help pushing this out. And you do the same to them and
That's
vice
true.
versa. And I think that the quality of life, whether it be the cost of living to just the amenities that we have here for free, that you
Mhm.
can live a great life and not have to like feel like you're in New York and you're spending your last dollar to go to the show with your friends, which
Right.
you've been there before, I'm sure.
I have been there before, man.
And that's
Yeah.
fun too, though,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's just different, and it's like it's hard to explain, but I think that we're moving in the right direction. There's still work that needs to be done in St. Louis, and I think that people are doing the work, and people like you that choose to live here and work here and take your expertise from New York, from Boston, from traveling across the world or
Mhm,
country or wherever
mhm,
you
mhm.
world. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I want to talk a little bit. We have a partnership with Birch Tree Recovery. Mental health is super important to what we do with being a social media company. We understand that mental health is at the root of everything that we do, and it's important for us. And through Birch Tree, we've been able to learn a little bit more about how people navigate that life.
Mhm.
So in the dance community and what you're doing, how has mental health been benefited, or how important is mental health to what you guys do? Because it is a grind to do what you guys
Yeah,
do
it is a
sometimes.
grind. I mean, I think that, there are a couple of connections. Dance is a form of communication, and sometimes when people can't find words, they put it in their art,
Hmm.
and it can be a healing process. You know, I I also think that just again to the point of like coming to the theater, right, and like being a beacon of hope, being just a couple of hours of beauty for someone that's had a terrible day,
Hmm.
right? Like that could, coming to the theater and seeing something uplifting could just like change, like that can change you in a second. And so I really do feel like, I don't have any scientific,
Yeah.
information about it, but I definitely feel that the arts period are healer,
Hmm.
right? And can definitely change minds and change hearts.
I agree. Yeah, it's just a feeling that you get, and
Yeah.
it's one of those things when you leave a show and you talk about it, and it's how you feel, and then they feel motivated to maybe you guys have people in your attendance that see something, and then they're motivated to then do that thing or the story. But not all the stories you tell are always happy stories too,
That's
and
right.
but
But
that's beautiful and it's well made.
yeah, but I think that, to your point, like, if someone is going to a theater and seeing, the same thing, that has one effect on them, but then somebody coming to the theater and being surprised by what they see or seeing themselves represented in something, again, I am in very specific body politics, and so I try to honor that by making these works that speak to a queer space, that speak, that kind of, have the heartbeat of who I am and where I'm from, and
Hmm.
and everybody that I bring to this space kind of like functions in a very similar way. And so there's all of these different experiences that are coming to this community.
Right.
And again, another draw for anyone that's like confused, well, why should I go? Because there's going to be something up there on that stage that touches you.
Hmm.
There's going to be something up there that speaks to your soul, whether it is a moment in time or the whole evening.
Exactly. So, moving on to the STL bucket list.
Yes.
So, you are from the Northeast.
Hmm.
You guys have great restaurants. You have all these great things to do up there. But when you're in St. Louis, what are some things that you love to do? What are some things that you have on your bucket list? This could be some of your favorite bites, maybe some of your other favorite experiences outside of St. Louis Dance Theater. That's on your. We
Yeah,
know that's
yeah,
on
yeah,
your bucket
yeah.
list.
You know, that's number one, right?
Um,
But I would have to say a couple of bites. I would have to say Grace Meats
yeah,
on Manchester.
it's great.
Oh my goodness. That catfish is very good.
Yeah, it is.
That's one of my favorites.
Mhm.
Sugar Fire. I
Yeah.
know, folks go back and forth about this barbecue thing. I know these might be fighting words for somebody,
Yeah.
but I think that Sugar Fire is some of the best barbecue here in St. Louis. So like
Yeah.
those are two of my like kind of go-tos
Yeah,
whenever
fast casual stuff.
yeah, whenever I want like
Grace
that.
meat always hits.
Oh my gosh.
You always get the catfish?
Always get the catfish or the fried
Spicy? Hot?
chicken. I
Mild?
get it regular, but then I get the hot honey sauce.
Yeah, and drizzle it on
Ooh,
there.
and drizzle it on there.
And they got the
Exactly.
collard greens and
Yep,
mac
the
and
collard
cheese.
greens, the mac and cheese without the breadcrumbs. I don't know whose
Mhm.
idea that was, but without
Yeah,
the bread,
yeah,
without
that
the
is something new.
breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're
it
like,
don't
mac
need
and
that
cheese was
crunch.
good the way it was.
It don't need that crunch. It doesn't need that crunch. No.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are kind of my like quick like go-tos. And then in terms of like experiences, the Contemporary Art Museum, the St. Louis Art Museum, the Pulitzer Arts Foundation, the Symphony Orchestra is one of our favorite collaborators, and
Mhm.
and I just the work that they are doing, and you look at their roster of the art that they're bringing to this community, and it's just really, really incredible. Again, Jazz at the Bistro, I didn't even know that I needed that experience in my life until the first time I had it,
Yeah,
right? Where you get
yeah.
to sit and have a delicious meal and get to fellowship with folks and see a good show,
Amazing
Oh my
experience.
goodness. So
Yeah.
like such an amazing experience. And then the Fox Charitable Foundation for all the Broadway needs, right?
Yeah.
Like they do great work of bringing, some of my homies sometimes that come
They
through
come through town.
town,
Yeah.
yeah,
And they're
on
like,
their
"Hey, I'm
needs.
staying in your
Exactly,
neighborhood."
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's cool that you get to catch up with
Yeah,
people.
we actually had when MJ the Musical was here, one
Yep.
of the rehearsal directors is actually a very good friend of mine. So
That's amazing.
he got to stay with us.
Because they're here
the
for a
whole time.
minute too.
They were here for like 3 weeks or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's crazy.
again, I'm always going to be a cheerleader and an advocate for the arts, and here in St. Louis, and so those are like but
Yeah, the
those are some of my
Symphony, our
yeah.
office is on the bottom of the On God Arts Hotel.
Oh,
So
okay.
we're right across
Yeah,
from
yeah, yeah.
the Symphony's that rebuild they're going through right
Isn't
now.
it amazing?
It looks unbelievable. I've seen the renderings and it's starting to look like how it. A lot of times you see renderings and you're like, oh, it
Mhm.
doesn't look like it used to, but like the
Yeah.
renderings, it looks incredible. And they've
Man,
been working on that for a good like 18 months now. So far.
I'm already plotting and scheming, man.
Yeah,
I'm
you're
already
like, what are we gonna do
oh
in
yeah,
there?
what are we gonna do in there?
Yeah,
What
'cause they got
are
the
the
space
million
now.
things that we are gonna do in there? I'm like, listen, that
So you mentioned collaborators,
Yeah.
like you guys collaborate with a lot of these other organizations.
Uh-huh.
Like somebody's like, "Hey, I need 5 dancers," or like, what is it? What does that look like? How does that process? Is it just different every time?
Yeah, it's different every time. Sometimes it has been like that, right? Like we've, the my colleagues at Opera Theater have reached out and say, hey, we have this very specific need. Like, how can how can you fill this for us? And but then again, to the point that I made earlier, sometimes, my team at the symphony reaches out, Stefan and Marie Helene, and they're like, we want this orchestration, and we want
Immaculate. Yeah.
these dancers on we want the company on stage, right? And so,
Mhm.
and again, this collaboration that we are about to do with Jazz St. Louis, came about because they were like, we've done this Nutcracker, for several years, and it's always received well. And how incredible would it be to have dance put to it,
Yeah.
And so we've staged photo shoots at the Pulitzer Arts Foundation, so they've been a long time collaborator.
Yeah, I've seen some of those.
Yeah, and yeah, so every opportunity presents itself a little bit differently, but
That's
we're
so cool that you get the chance to like do that though.
yeah,
There's not
I
many
mean,
like jobs that you can be like, "Hey, let's collab with them this season." And yeah.
absolutely. And again, visibility across both organizations, right?
Mhm.
But also just like, just helps our audiences like just see us differently, right?
Yeah.
I think they're so, sometimes so used to like coming and sitting in a theater, but that it's different when we also did a collaboration recently with the Kemper Arts Museum, and you know actual like site specific work that was in conversation with the exhibit that was on at
Mm.
that time, right?
Mhm.
So it just brings our audiences closer to our work, and
Mhm.
I just think it's a well-rounded experience for, across organizations.
Yeah, it's the ecosystem that we're creating
Absolutely,
here.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Ellington Strayhorn
Yeah.
photo shoot. That's cool. You guy
Yeah.
holding up the
Uh-huh,
glass.
yeah,
Yeah,
very excited about that.
that's fire. So you guys even go like depending on show, but like you'll go and create skits, photo shoot experience. Like it's not
Yeah.
just the show. There's
Yeah,
more that
yeah.
goes in on everything.
So again, to the
Mhm.
question that you asked earlier about all of the hats that I wear,
Yeah.
any photo that you see of my dancers, I had something to do with that. So,
Yeah.
that level of direction, that level of
Mhm.
vision,
Everything
right?
that goes out online, you're
Oh yeah,
touching it. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, no, that sometimes it's a lot, but people know and then they understand because everything matters. You mentioned something at the very beginning of how they feel when they walk in. It's the same as when we want to talk about just a restaurant. You walk into Grace because you feel really good when you walk in there and
Mhm.
the experience is good, so that you talk about it and you go back there.
Mhm.
And that's how you're creating this experience on a way bigger scale, but it's like how does the program feel in my hand?
Right.
How does it open? Can I read
Yeah,
it? Is it too small? There's
that's
a lot of
right.
older people that might like how
Mhm.
everything matters. The way the bathrooms look, the way everything looks. People talk about every
Every
little,
single thing.
I mean,
Yeah, every single
you've
thing.
been in
Yeah.
the show business,
Uh-huh.
it all matters. So I think that like what you guys are doing at St. Louis Dance Theater is, you're becoming this organization that through dance that what we need here in St. Louis, and you're doing things outside of the box when it comes to storytelling.
Yeah.
So how can people support? How can people buy tickets? Is there any way like subscribe? Like how can people donate? Yeah.
Absolutely. You can find all of that information on our website, stlouisdancetheater.org. There's a way to sign up for, subscriptions, which will get you into Ellington's Nutcracker, as well as our rebuild concert that's happening in the winter, and as well as our spring concert that is happening. So,
Mhm.
two more main stage opportunities to see the company this year. There's also our tour de dance uh, event that's happening in the spring.
Mhm.
So all of that information, it will be on our website. Ways to give will be on our website. There's a tab for every single thing.
Yeah. No, that's great. Well, Carvin, thank you so much.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate you for
No,
coming on.
appreciate you. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah, we'll see you guys next week. Appreciate it.
Today they rep St. Louis, yeah. They rep St. Louis. They rep St. Louis.